Good afternoon everyone, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Lewis. I hope you're all safe and well. Now on today's episode, I'm just reading the title now. It's epic jazz fusion albums for those who find jazz a little too serious, a little too earnest for their tastes. So I'm hoping to present to you a number of albums which I hope that those who are kind of, you know, on the fence about jazz, not sure if they want to commit to it in terms of their collection, this might be a subgenre of jazz which you might just appreciate because it's got more of the sounds that you're familiar with and you like. So yeah, this is pretty much what it's about. So yeah, pretty much, as I said, jazz fusion obviously is jazz adjacent, but I would say it's different from traditional jazz in the sense of, whereas one might be listening to albums that I've presented to you in other videos and you listen to it like this. Yes, that's extremely worthy. Yes. Cool. Jazz fusion is more, you end up doing these kind of motions to it. It's more danceable. You could hear this, you know, in clubs and that sort of thing, and you just go, yeah, that's a cool tune. And it's more lively, it's more danceable. So that's the simplified version of what jazz fusion is. A lot more instrumentations, a lot more different instrumentations compared to traditional jazz, but it's got a more kind of lively and danceable aspects to it. So again, I'm not a musicologist, I'm not a musician by trade, so the descriptions I give you kind of make sense to me, and hopefully they'll make sense to you as well. But yeah, before we proceed with the video, I just want to do a bit of housekeeping. I want to thank everybody who watched the last video. I really do appreciate that. That was really nice of you. I'd like to welcome those who have subscribed since that last video was released, and thank you for joining me on this journey. Hopefully you found it, well, some of the videos at least, slightly entertaining, slightly informative. Yeah, I've got a kind of low-key way of doing things. Yeah, when you see my videos, you'll see it's extremely low tech, but that's just the way I am anyway. Yes, so thank you to all those who watched the last video. I really gratefully appreciate it. And for those who have left comments in the comment section, thank you so much. It's really nice to have an interaction. Even when I don't necessarily agree, I really do like the interaction, and I'll come back to that in a bit, in just a moment. Hopefully I won't forget, because there was a couple of things brought out which from the last video which I just like to clarify. Yeah, in my nature, I've been told by many people I'm a bit of a dog with a bone with certain things, so I do try consciously to, when I'm doing videos and they're on particular topics, to clarify in the introduction what it is I'm aiming to do. I try to do that, so when you're watching it, you kind of know where I'm coming from. But again, if you've seen previous videos on this particular channel, you know I'm a bit of a contrarian. I try to make it interesting by not showing you the same albums that everyone else is showing you. Not to say those albums are they're bad or anything, because I probably own them as well. It's just that if 50 other people are talking about the same album, I'd like to do something interesting and give you a wider palette of what's out there. So I'll introduce things that I know that other people are not talking about, but still I think are worthy. But yeah, I'll come back to that at a later point, hopefully, in this preamble. So in terms of where have you been, Lewis? It's like, it's been ages. It's like we got used to a certain schedule. Where have you been? I'm going to try and explain it briefly. First part of it was very fortunate, and I'm extremely pleased for the experience. My partner took me on a break to Sardinia, which is an island off Italy. It's Italy pretty much, but it's an island off Italy, and had a wonderful time out there. Anyone who's watching this video who's been to Sardinia will testify as well. It's a beautiful landscape. Took my breath away, reminded me of, well, where I was in Sardinia, and that was south, to the extreme south, not where all the kind of the rich folks and their super hotels and their yachts and their fancy, you know, that kind of stuff. That's in the north. In the south, it's more rural, and I was in that particular area. It very much reminded me of the Blue Mountain area in Jamaica. Yeah, very similar. So lush. I know it's pretty much, the island itself is traditionally seen as pretty barren and kind of like more kind of arid and desert like, but over a course of time they basically tried to introduce more foliage, so it's a more of a temperate climate. So beautiful place to be, lovely people. At 6 foot I'm a giant out there, which, you know, really made me laugh. Everybody was diminutive, and it was, yeah, and they kept looking up at me when they was like, yeah, who are you, kind of thing. But yes, an extremely lovely place to be, great people, very warm, very friendly. But you got to put yourself out there. You got to say hello to everybody. You got to say ciao. And you know, my Italian is very limited, but you know, doffing my hat when appropriate, when I'm going past people's properties or as I'm walking past them. Yeah, if you give a lot, you get a lot, and I'm that type of person. So I had a wonderful experience. So that was partly why I haven't done a video recently. Secondly, I caught the virus which shall not be mentioned, apart from it had the world in lockdown for a while. Yeah, as an experience, I'm going to draw the positives out of having, you know, contracting that particular virus. I was pretty much okay. It was more tedious than anything. I slept loads, and in sleeping I wasn't eating, so I dropped a few pounds, so I'm really happy about that. I'm not as jowly as normal. So yeah, it's like, if it's going to be an annual thing and I'm going to drop a bit of weight, you know, manageable weight, I ain't going to complain too much. And thirdly, there's been a lot of building work outside my residence, so yeah, it's been really difficult to do any recording because there's what's municipal works going on, and yes, there's been a lot of jackhammers and stuff like that, and you know, workmen doing their thing, so I can't basically block them out. It's literally outside. So yeah, that's partly why it was as well. So 3 reasons for why it's taken so long to do another video since the last one. So I do apologize, but yeah, as you can see, there was mitigating circumstances, so that'll explain some of that. Yes, to get back to the issue at hand, I'm going to present today some epic jazz fusion albums for those who find jazz a little too earnest, a little too serious for their liking, but they kind of are still interested at the same time. So I've got a couple of pieces of vinyl just there to show you, and we're just going to go through it, and of course I'm going to leave links down below for each album as long as I can find it on the internet. I'll put a link to it so you can hear for yourself. It'll be like 1 track from each album. Yeah, if you like it, listen to the whole album, see what you think, see if it's going to fit in your particular collection. Now, I don't have a huge amount of, yes and no, I do have quite a bit of jazz fusion, but they tend to be on albums which are also predominantly jazz funk as well, and I didn't want to blur the lines in things, so I've picked specific albums which are overwhelmingly jazz fusion in nature. So yeah, it's going to give you if you think that this might be the kind of avenue you want to go down, it's a decent place to start. These are not the, some of these albums do represent some of the best work of that subgenre, but I'm not saying it's all of them. I'm not saying it's these, you know, if I've missed out something, it doesn't mean that I don't like it. I probably do own it. I just didn't think it was appropriate for this particular video. So that circles me round to some of my observations of the last video, where overwhelmingly, don't get me wrong, lovely comments, that sort of thing, but there was one or two comments which perplexed me somewhat, in the sense of, and this is where the dog with a bone thing comes in again. I think a couple of people and misunderstood where I was trying to do, and I find it fascinating that, yeah, it's just a fascinating thing to observe. I don't get personally affected by it. I just try to figure out what that person means when they say certain things. So say, for example, on the last video, I made it clear in the title, if the title was, you know, if you did happen to see the video and you did read it, it did say, you know, 10 albums to, you know, if you're starting off in jazz, 10 albums which you would have, you know, it's a good place to start, a good launch pad. I never said it was the best albums, jazz albums ever. I never said it was the best albums in my collection. I was quite specific in terms of trying to just nail down that these are albums where, if you're starting off in jazz, I'm of the sort of mind that don't go for you can go for the very best. Everybody's got their own individual journey, and my journey was hearing the best of the genre and then working my way backwards. Whereas I'm trying to advocate, well, kind of listen to, in terms of tiers, and I don't mean tears rolling down your cheeks, I mean tears as in levels of jazz. You can start off in, you know, albums which you can grade as, you know, B minuses, B's, B plus into A's, and then you get the supersonic ones like the, excuse me there, the John Coltrane's, the Miles Davis's, those ones are elite level, and they're like once in a generation. I'm saying, I'm kind of advocating more a case of, when you're starting, you don't necessarily need to start with those ones, because it will give you a kind of skewed idea of what jazz is. And also, there is so much jazz material out there. There's tens of thousands of albums. It's why limit yourself to the same 200 albums that everybody else talks about? There's something for everyone. And if you can feel my passion coming out, and slightly some of my frustration, in the sense of, I just feel it, if you're into your vinyl, you think you're going to be into jazz, there is a whole world. I only know a fraction of it myself, but I'm willing to listen to and experience albums from artists who are not, you know, superstar level, but that doesn't mean that their work isn't worthy of being in your collection, or certainly in my collection. So there were some misunderstandings where I got some, you know, there was only a couple of comments where the feedback was, oh, your list is like, it doesn't have X, Y, and Z in there. But it was the same X, Y, and Z which everybody else talks about. And I don't necessarily think that, although I think I would agree that those are superb albums, superb material, I don't think it's necessarily for everyone the best place to start. And also, I would concede it will depend, your taste in jazz will depend on genres that you've been interested in the past. So say if you come from a more classical background, somebody, labels like the ECM, I'm just trying to think of artists, it escapes me for the moment, it will come back to me in a moment, where it's more piano led, more kind of classical kind of crossover. You tend to like that more, because it's more of what you kind of understand and like already. Whereas somebody who came from R&B or came from rock circles, your taste and what you find that you like when you're listening to another genre, it's going to be slightly different, your experience. So I'm saying there's something for everyone in jazz. You don't all have to start in the same place, and it doesn't mean that because you're not starting with these super elite ones that somehow your taste is inferior or whatever. Work your way up to those, you know. You could, or you can still have them, you know. Nobody's excluding any of these kind of options, but I'm just saying that there's other options out there. So that's part of what my slight frustration with a couple of comments, because they didn't read the title and they didn't read my they didn't watch enough of the video to listen to my explanation about what I was trying to do, hence why they came up with comments which were mistaken, in the sense of you're trying to redress things that I never basically said in the first place. So it was a kind of a straw man argument. So I like debate, and it was an interesting one, and I thought about what these people, you know, the people who wrote these comments, what they were thinking about. And I'm going to be extremely fair to them. I thank everyone for giving me their time watching videos, my particular videos. You could be watching any other person's video. I have no right to your time. So when you do give me your time, I really do appreciate it, and I'm never going to forget that. So yeah, I'm not going to take it too far, but I'm just going to say, when you are making comments about the video, it would be helpful if you could listen to my explanation, my introduction for why I'm doing it and what I'm trying to do, rather than just taking snippets and, you know, launching your particular response to me based on, you know, 30 seconds of audio and thinking that I'm going in a direction that I'm not. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. Yeah, let's just get on with it. So 17 minutes down and I've done enough waffling. Let's get into the albums. So they're in no particular order, but like I said, they're jazz fusion, so they're more on the danceable side of things. Hopefully some of them you're going to be familiar with, some of them you may not be. If you haven't heard them before, give them a listen. Links down below. This is just a launch pad. You take it wherever you want to go from here. You may not like the sound of any of it. I can quite understand if you don't. It's jazz adjacent. It's in my collection for a very good reason, because I like it. And yeah, say no more. Let's get on with the first one. So the first one today looks like it's an English pressing of it. Let's see if I can see a year. 1976. It's by a gentleman called Eddie Russ. The album's entitled See the Light. And yeah, I like this album. Here we go. In fact, let me try and take it out of the sleeve so you can see it a bit better. There you go. Yeah, that's a cool image. Loving the medallion there. That's fantastic. And let's show you the reverse side. There you go. A bit of glamour there. Nothing wrong with that. So on this particular album, 3 tracks which I feel are really good examples of jazz fusion, and See the Light, Zaus, which is probably one of his more famous work, and Salem Avenue. It's got all the elements of jazz fusion, so you will find yourself kind of me humming the tune, which has nothing to do with the tracks on here, but you will find yourself kind of going along that, if you do like the genre, that is, because you might just go, oh, that's just wretched. And again, your opinion, I respect your opinion. I don't agree with it, but I would respect your opinion. But have a listen to it. Yeah, I picked this one up a couple of years ago. It's an English pressing version of it, so the one that you might find in your territory might have a slightly different cover. But yeah, I just found it to be extremely entertaining. Let's see what label. My particular one in front of me is on the Soul Brother record label. Hence it's an English version. Not sure. Let me have a look at the vinyl itself. See if, oh, Monument. So Monument would be the original label in which it came out on. So got it for a reasonable price. Really glad to have it. It's, yeah, I'm not saying it's the best of the best, but it's a very good example of the subgenre of jazz fusion. So that's the first one, Eddie Russ, See the Light. Yeah, 3 banging tracks on there, no doubts about it. The second album today, I'll try and take it out of the cover beforehand, came out on the United Artists record label, 1977 release. Yeah, the story with this is, again, when I was getting into jazz, when I was like of college age, I asked one of my friends at that stage, who had an older brother who's into jazz. I said, can you do me a mixtape, please? Because I'm kind of into jazz, but I don't know really where to go. Lovely fella did me a mixtape, which I'm sure I've got in a box in the attic somewhere. It was superb, and it had tracks on there I never heard before. I was blown away by it. Used to play it all the time. Did that thing of dubbing it for recording it for other people and going, yeah, taking full credit for it when I didn't have the albums themselves. Didn't know who were the artists, in fairness. So yeah, that's how I came across this album, initially hearing it, and years later found out who it was, bought the album, snapped it up immediately. I definitely bought this one secondhand. There's no doubts about it. I didn't buy it brand new. So as I said, United Artists, 1977. The gentleman's called Ronnie Laws, and the album's entitled Friends and Strangers. Now, it is one of the worst album covers, because it's a motorcycle, and it's 2 of them, and it's the same motorcycle. Not sure why they did that. And that's the gentleman on the reverse. Loving the velvet jacket. Looks like it quite, from the shoulders, he looks quite diminutive. 5'6", 7 the most. Lovely moustache. I would like to replicate that sometime in my life. I too would like to have a full-blown, yeah, that's a lovely moustache. So Ronnie Laws and his Hubert Laws, both of them are they're famous for wind instruments. Outstanding performance, and you would see them in the credits for loads of people's albums, loads, particularly if you want good flute work, that sort of thing. You get the Law family involved in it, and yeah, you're onto a winner. On this particular album, again, I would say there's 3 really good tracks on here: Good Time Ride, Friends and Strangers, and Nothing But Nothing. Yeah, you just be going, yeah, it's beautiful. So Lord knows how much these are now. Probably they're relatively affordable. I'd like to see a repressing of this at some stage, because I'd like a slightly cleaner copy of it, but I'm happy with the one that I have. Let's just have a look. Yeah, nothing by way of, nothing interesting inside. But yeah, I'm going to leave links down below. I'll pick one of the tracks so you can hear it for yourself, see if it fits into your particular tastes. But I would say the Laws family, they're extremely talented. So there's Eloise, there's Hubert, and Ronnie himself, and every one of them is an absolute talent, no doubts about it. So again, I just can't help looking at, he looks like a really nice guy. He really does. You just want to sit in a bar with him, let him tell you stories. I'm sure he's got loads of them as well, but the dude's just, yeah, he just looks like a really nice guy. So that's the second album. Let me find Where did I throw? You know what? I can't find it. Oh, there it is. Let me just put it back in its sleeve. You know how it is when you get used to doing things like having them in sleeves. If you don't put them back, you slightly get a bit anxious. Well, I do anyway. It's just like, on the one occasion I didn't put it back in the sleeve, that's when it got scuffed up. But that's just me. The third album today, I'll expect quite a few of you to know what it is. It is, let's just have a look again, a 1977 release. Came out on the Capitol EMI label. Yes, predominantly Capitol. It's by a gentleman called Gary Bartz, and the album's entitled Music Is My Sanctuary. Let me take it out of the cover again so you can perhaps see it a bit better. There you go. And there's the reverse side. Show you a little. There you go, in terms of the actual album itself. So this is a repress. I know the originals probably are ridiculous amounts of money. First encountered this particular, well, the track Music Is My Sanctuary. I came across it on a compilation album, absolutely fell in love with it, thought it was the best thing since sliced bread. Still maintain that it's an outstanding jazz dance track. Yeah, just superb. Yeah, so I got a feeling that many of you will either have heard the track or have the album in your own possession. Those who don't, I will leave a link down below. The tracks that I would recommend as a good example of the jazz fusion sound is the title track Music Is My Sanctuary. Second track would be Carnival de l'Esprit. You know, I butchered it, the French, yeah, forgive me. And the third track would be Macaroni. Yeah, it's just a really good album. You can still get this repress relatively, it's relatively affordable. You should be able to find it out in the wild. If you can find an original and it's good, you know, you can get it for reasonable money, do that. It's the album itself which is a triumph. So I'm not enamored with the cover. I must admit, the cover image I'm not entirely, but maybe, yeah, you know what, it's me being silly, because all the hecticness of what's going around, and he's in the phone box with his saxophone. I'm not sure if you can see that. He looks a bit out of proportion as well. But yeah, that's why I say music is my sanctuary. When I'm listening to my music, the chaos from the outside world just dissipates. So I should have thought about that before launching into a diatribe about why I don't like it, because it does exactly what it says on the tin kind of thing as an image. So yeah, I give myself a slap on the hand for not paying attention and connecting the dots. So third album, I'm going to leave a link down below so you can hear it for yourself. I think it's a really good album for the kind of jazzier, the more dance side of jazz, which is jazz fusion. Yeah, I think this one's a no-brainer. Yeah, lots of people have this. If you don't have it, listen to it, see if you like it, get it in your collection if you think you want to go in that direction. But this is, yeah, up there in terms of jazz fusion type albums. So that's the third one. The fourth one today is, it's just a seminal album. Came out on Blue Note, originally 1975. Now the story with this is, when I was in my early 20s, I knew that, you know, there was a particular record shop which had the originals of this, and it was ridiculous amounts of money. Even at that stage, I have no idea what an original of this album would cost now. I'm not even looking it up, really and truly. I've had cheaper repressings of this album, but when they repressed it on 180 grams recently, had to get it. This is probably the only one of maybe 3 or 4 albums in my entire collection which I haven't unsealed. I've never broken the seal of it because I've got in cheaper versions of this album elsewhere. I don't really need to open it, but I had to have the original kind of cover format version of it in my collection at some point, so hence why you still got the barcodes on it. And so it's Donald Byrd, and the album is Places and Spaces. I don't know why I hesitated there, like I didn't know what it was. Of course I know what it is. So yeah, really nice cover, and a unique one, which once you know this album's existence, you can't help but have it in your mind as to, you could see this album in a record shop amongst hundreds of other albums, and your eyes will, once you know this album, you just got, it's kind of like Let It Bleed with Rolling Stones. You, at the periphery of your eye, you would know what it is. So an astounding example of jazz fusion as well. Like the Gary Bartz album, this is up there. It really is. For those who know about it, they already have it. For those who have never seen it before, I'm going to leave links down below. This is pretty much as good as it gets in terms of jazz fusion. It's got seminal pieces on here which are just mind blowing. I can say no more. I'm not going to crack it open for you guys as much as you want me to. I'm not going to do it. It's staying in its factory seal. It's going to stay like that forever. I'd rather buy another copy of it and then crack open that one or this one, but I'm certainly going to have one sealed. When it was repressed recently, came out for reasonable money. Prices crept up a bit, particularly as stock was running out. I think they did another production run, so you should be able to get it. Blue Note, 1975, an absolute stonker, this album. Not all of it, but the seminal tunes are extremely good, and it will be tracks including Change, Makes You Want to Hustle, Wind Parade. Ooh, Wind Parade is absolutely astonishing. Dominoes, Places and Spaces. Oh my gosh. So four just big tracks. Yeah, you can hear my enthusiasm. This album is the business for jazz fusion. It's just chef's kiss, good as it gets. Right, moving on to another, you know what, I don't even know, let me change that one because I didn't want to do 2 Blue Note albums in a row. Let me change it to another 1975 release on the Polydor record label. Again, we're talking about a seminal jazz fusion album. This one just enlivens my spirit. For those who know it, yeah, they've got it in their collection already in one format or another. If you've never seen it before, or you've never heard of the artist, which would slightly surprise me, but yeah, why should I? Yeah, anyway, this again is nearly as good as it gets. It doesn't have the amount of tracks on this album which the others, the last 2 did, but the seminal pieces on here, certainly in the world of jazz fusion, they are the business. So 1975, Polydor, Roy Ayers, Mystic Voyage. Let me take it out of the cover. Again, it's one of those kind of covers that if you're into jazz fusion, you could pick out this album in a record store in like 2 seconds kind of thing. You just know it. Yeah. The tracks on here would be Mystic Voyage, the title track. That's unbelievable. It just and Life Is Just a Moment, parts 1 and 2. Now, when you hear this, you might even know these tracks, but in terms of A Life Is Just a Moment, a lot of the compilations have one of the parts to it and not the other. Very rarely do you find both parts of that tune on a compilation, so you kind of need the album. So yeah, that's, yeah, just lively, just summer's afternoon, got a glass, well, my preference is white wine rather than red, but yeah, just get yourself in a good mood. Absolutely just stonking track. So yeah, if you haven't got it and you've never seen it before, please introduce yourself to it. I'm going to leave links down below for it. It's put a smile on my face. I'm talking garbage because I love this album as well. So yeah, I can't help that my enthusiasm is, you know, hopefully it's infectious. Hopefully you guys like it. If you don't, I understand. I'm never going to apologize for these albums because I just think they're the business. If you might just say, well, in terms of I like jazz, but I more like the more traditional stuff, fine. This episode isn't about the traditional jazz sound. This is about the more dance side of jazz. So yeah, another stonking album. Give me a second. So I got two more because I don't want this video, I mean, yeah, you know my videos go on for ages. I'm going to try and like cut this one down by not showing you as many albums. The next album is again, well, not again, but it's on the Blue Note record label. Let's see when the year it first came out. Again, another 1975 album. Seems like 1975, 1977. Some brilliant albums came out, absolutely astonishing. So I just want, this is an example of, and there's some connection between these albums in terms of who's produced them. In this case, it's the Mizell brothers. That's Larry and Fonce Mizell. Jazz fusion is kind of their sound. I say Earth, Wind and Fire's got a lot to do with it as well. But yeah, the Mizell brothers, their back catalogue of tracks which they've had input on is unbelievable. It's disproportionate. It really is. It's like, my God, these guys they're just everywhere with this type of sound. I'm just trying to think of what an equivalent would be as a certain sound. Phil Spector sound. You can't help but know it. Once you heard it, you know the Phil Spector sound. The Mizell sound is a particular sound, and they know what they're doing. So on this album, let me just give you a couple of people who are on there. Harvey Mason on drums, obviously Fonz and Larry Mizell on there. Julian Priester on trombone. Dorothy Ashby on harp. But the album's actually by Bobby Humphrey, and the album's entitled Fancy Dancer. I don't know why I gave it a regional accent. Fancy Dancer. Again, this is like a ubiquitous, good as it gets jazz fusion album. Super happy to get I've seen, yeah, so the originals were really expensive. There wasn't a repress for ages, not on vinyl. On CD there was. This is one of, you know, I don't have a lot of albums where I've got them on CD as well as vinyl, but this one, again, there's certain sounds that I just have to have. And if it's on multiple formats, then so be it. I can just live with that. So the tracks on this particular one, I'm going to be honest with you, two outstanding tracks. Una Esta and The Trip. Those two tracks are just, irrespective of what else is on this album, if it was a 2-track EP with those two tracks at exactly the same price, I'd be buying it anyway. That's just it. I was going to get it anyway. Bobby Humphrey is one outstanding artist. Perhaps doesn't get the credit that she deserves. A bit like is it like an Alice Coltrane situation? More like a it's actually more like a Dorothy Ashby type of situation, where if you're familiar with her work or you've got to know it, you really realize how good she is and her output. But yet she's kind of forgotten in certain conversations. But I'm going to leave a link down below. I'll pick out one, you know, the track I think best exemplifies the jazz fusion sound and the Moselle sound, and you'll be able to hear it for yourself, and hopefully you're going to enjoy it just as much as I do. Hence why I've been talking like an absolute madman for the last, you know, 30 odd minutes about it. These albums and particular tracks, they just put a smile on my face. They just take me to that happy place. Even in the depths of winter, I feel happy. I feel the sun on my face listening to these tracks. So yeah, I'll leave a link down below. And we're going to come to the last one now. And probably for bang for buck, it probably is the best album of all the ones I've shown you, for the number of tracks, the quality of the tracks. Yeah. So this is the copy I've got in front of me is an actual UK release. Again, this is a Larry and Fonz Moselle produced album, so it has their particular sound, and that's really important to realize that pretty much in jazz fusion, the jazz fusion sound, which is at its height, is their sound, like the Phil Spector thing. So let's see when this, hopefully I can tell you when this was originally released. I might be able to do that. Again, 1975. Who would have thunk it? Right, let's just see who's oh gosh, let's just go through some of the artists who are on this album before I tell you who the actual main one is. Julian Priester on trombone, Hadley Callum on tenor saxophone, Michael White on violin, Harvey Mason on drums, Kenneth Nash on percussion. Those are big hitters. Those guys don't mess about. This is an overpowered super group. It really is. But the overarching star of the show is Johnny Hammond, and the album is Gears. Yeah, let me take it out of the camera. So this is a gatefold one. I'm sure you can get numerous. So that's the man himself. There's Mr. Johnny wearing his kind of commandant or admiral type hat. Yeah, again, this guy just makes me laugh. Whenever I see him, he just looks like a jolly fella. The reverse side is as such, trying to look cool. Hard to look cool when you know he is cool. His music speaks for itself, and I shouldn't make like observations about what he looks like more than any, you know, because it doesn't really matter. I'm here for the music. I don't care about anything else really. But yeah, the hairline is not helpful in this particular respect. But the tracks on here, let's just go through them in terms of the outstanding corkers on here. Tell Me What to Do, Los Conquistadores Chocolata. I do love that track. Fantasy, big tune. Shifting Gears, big tune. Can't Be Smart, more of a low key, like that's more of a slower tune. Yeah, just riddled with outstanding tracks on here. Bang for buck, Chef's Kiss. It's got everything a person could want in an album. Absolutely fantastic. I'm going to leave links down below. I might even just go for a thing where instead of just one track per album, I might even go for two. I don't know. I'll see how it goes. See how much effort it takes. But yeah, have a listen to it. Have a listen to all the tracks that I'm going to leave links to. See if the jazz fusion sound works for you. It's a particular sound. See if it works for you. And if it does, fair play. These albums are available. They're never coming out of my collection. No matter what I've got in my collection, no matter what the value is of it, none of those things matter to me. The sound of the individual tracks is really what just gets me rendered speechless by how good this is. It's just the absolute business. So that's the last album today. So yes, an introduction to jazz fusion, some big hitters in here, a couple of obscure ones maybe for some people, but yeah, predominantly, I know I say with jazz don't start with the big hitters, but I gotta say, if I was to show you some of the other albums, they like one track ones, I can't really recommend them in terms of you buying them. I've got them, but I wouldn't recommend it to you because it doesn't represent good value for money, and I'd rather you start off in that particular sense if you're going to go down this avenue. But yeah, I've given you some of the heavy hitters. An absolutely fascinating and enjoyable subdivision of jazz, which never going to leave my collection. It's just not happening. I'm not even considering that. So it's not even something that crosses my mind. I have to have it. It's there. So as you can tell by my enthusiasm, I've really enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much for joining me. Listen to me waffle. I hope you found it entertaining and hopefully slightly informative. If it's not for you, I totally understand. Or you've got other suggestions of other albums, which if those people have got, anybody who else is watching who may have all the albums that I've just outlined to you and they want to pursue it, if you've got ideas, put it in the comment section. Love, you know, I'd be glad to read it. If you hated it, please tell me why. But yeah, there you go. I can just see that yeah, the memory card's gone a bit funny there. So you're going to find a yeah, you're not going to get like a nice transition. It's going to be truly clunky. I can't believe for less albums I used exactly the same amount of time as I did for 10 albums, and I've actually shown you 7. That just shows you how much I waffle and get overly enthusiastic. Thank you for spending time with me. I really do appreciate it. It's never going to be underestimated or forgotten that you've chosen to spend some time with me. I really do appreciate it. So until the next episode, please look after yourselves, stay safe, and I will see you shortly for another video. But until then, take care. Bye bye.